on. Wow, love to be here for the Eleanor Hawkins Show. I love the standing room only. Good evening, I'm Nicholas Johnson. I'm the publisher of Axios. Thanks you so much for joining us here at Axios House. We're day 2 of our programming here on the sidelines of Climate Week in the United Nations General Assembly. We're very grateful for all of you to take time out of the busy week and join us. Also hugely thankful to our partners. Nothing we do at Axios is possible without the support of our partners. The investments we make in journalism around the country, hosting great events like this. So huge thanks to Weber Shandwick for being our partner this evening. And I'm very excited to welcome to the stage my old friend from Weber Shandwick, their CEO for North America and Global President, Jim O'Leary. Jim, where are you? Welcome back to Axios House. Take your time.
There he is.
It comes out of your time. Good to see you.
I'm so glad they fixed the pillows.
You can put that in your lap if you want to keep the branding.
Yeah.
Great to see you. Always fun to talk, especially excited this time. You come bearing gifts.
I do?
I hope so. It says it on the card. Let's see.
Okay, that's
Let's
good.
See what you got.
We'll give some I brought.
Weber Shandwick just did a CEO survey, 250 C-suite executives.
Yes, okay, we do come bearing
I want to
gifts.
hear what they're saying. I'm going to ask like I do every time, like, is ESG dead? What are they talking about?
You know, normally you give me at least like 1 or 2 less provocative questions before you spring that on me.
I just want to keep you engaging.
But I'm glad that you just went for it this time around, Nick. Yeah, so is ESG dead? I mean, I think I think effectively the term ESG is dead, or certainly dormant right now, right? But I do not think that ESG, from a substance perspective, is dead at all. And our research reflects this too, which we'll talk about momentarily. Yeah. I think from a substance perspective, ESG is alive and well, and I think you could even argue that there has been a shift away from what was a bit of a performative version of ESG over the past several years to a much more performance-aligned or business-aligned version of kind of the substance of ESG. And so I would argue that's a good thing.
How does that show up in the data?
Yeah, so we did this research, you referenced it, 250 C-suite executives, we talked to them all. Half were in the US, half were outside of the US.
Right.
And we asked them a bunch of questions. And I think the piece of data that is probably most relevant to the overall headline here is that half of the people that we spoke to, they are in the midst of reevaluating the substance of their ESG programs, and they're all working to align them much more directly with their business strategy, much like you just heard our friends from Gap talking about, right? And again, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a shift away from kind of like the virtue signaling version.
Again, from the performative to actual performance base.
Yeah, I think so.
How do they talk about it then? Like, how do you align that change into the way the language? I guess.
How do you talk about it in the current environment? That's a little bit challenging at times.
That's why people call you.
That's right. So I mean, okay, look, I guess we were in this exact room now that I think about it a year ago, almost on this same date. We just, I guess you get to hang out with me every once.
It's always great to see you.
In that moment, what did we say? We said that there was a bunch of research that had been done related to the how people talk about it. And at that point, it was like a dramatic decrease in the use of the term ESG investing, and then a massive decrease in CEOs using the term ESG on like earnings calls, annual reports, and all the rest. I think that has continued. I think also there's a big shift away from the term DEI, oftentimes towards inclusion and belonging. But I think, again, the substance beneath them both is still quite strong. Yeah. Our research, we found a couple things. So that was last year, that those trends are continuing. What we found that was new, probably 2 things related to where there's more use of certain language and then one less. So we're seeing more use of language that leans into like, and you would expect this given the defining nature of AI and the zeitgeist right now. But there's a lot more like leaning into like technology and innovation, even in the context of sustainability. Right, in the context of ESG, and then a lot more, and you would not be remotely surprised to hear this given what's going on politically, but a lot more leaning into like workforce, job creation, American manufacturing.
Like an economic message, a little.
Economic message,
more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then where we are seeing a significant decrease is in identity-oriented language. People are trying to stay out of getting caught up in identity politics.
To put this onto the trend,
Yeah.
like, is this since we talked a year ago to that point, is this a continuation of that same line? Are there zigs? Are there zags? Did the research pull anything out on that? Like, have people maybe
so
shifting?
I think it's a continued deceleration
Right.
of the use of this type of language. Not so much like the language that's more specific to the things that oftentimes are much more close to the business, and so like decarbonization or climate or that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But related to just the more generic use of the terms, yeah, absolutely.
How do we turn this into practical advice, like for communicators in
Right.
the room,
Yeah.
like based on those trends, based on
Yeah.
that research? What's your tips for
Yeah.
them?
Well, you heard it from our friends over at the Gap, and I think that this certainly came out in the research, which is like the most important thing is just being authentic, right? And so if you're Patagonia or if you're Gap, I guess Gap's next. Patagonia was before. If you're Patagonia and your one of your things is a wildlife and it's quite authentic to you, then then obviously you should be leaning into that. But and if you're McDonald's and it's regenerative agriculture,
Yeah.
if you're General Motors in the current environment, might even be like American manufacturing. And I think that's that's what in some ways it's a little bit of like a back to the basics, which is what a lot of times before the pendulum swang so far one direction,
Right.
where things were, which is a substantive version of ESG in support of the business versus a more performative version of ESG that might have been in support of like weighing in on every issue that came across someone's desk or making commitments.
Making it
or
more aligned with those
pledges.
core things that you always believed in instead of maybe looking for new
yeah,
things
that's
to
right.
talk about. There's something you talk about a lot that we've shared before that I want you to share for this broader audience, something like 5X. Like, unpack
Right.
what you mean by that when we've talked about it, because I thought it was an interesting topic.
Yeah,
You
right.
mentioned
We
it
talked about
before.
that. I guess it was in Cannes, and then I
Yeah.
wrote something up for Axios, everyone's favorite publication, of course. So 5X, yeah, I think if this is a room full of people who are in broadly the communications, marketing, and the sustainability profession. I'll talk about it in the context of our industry, right? And so I think there's 5 column seismic shifts that are reshaping the future of our profession. That's what 5X is. We of course just had to give it a fancy acronym because they're in such high demand acronyms these days, aside from ESG and DEI. So we did a bunch of research, and we determined that in the next 5 years, within the kind of communications and marketing profession, there's arguably going to be more change in the next 5 years than there has been in the past 5 decades, right? And the change is being driven by 5 trends that each have a corresponding economy. And when I say economy, I don't mean like a geographic, like the U.S. economy. I mean more like the circular economy, a trend-based economy, right? And so the 5 economies are, and I'll break this down a little bit, but the first is the attention economy.
Yeah.
The second is the experience economy. The third is the creator economy. The fourth is the stakeholder economy. And the fifth is the intelligence economy, right? And so the attention economy, this is what our profession has been, we've been in the business of for the past 50 years, right? Which is earning attention. And,
Yeah.
I guess it was Ezra Klein just recently, he was like, you can't buy attention, you got to earn attention, right? He's putting a nice little endorsement on what we've been doing for a very long time. This is, of course, the foundation upon which our profession has been built.
Yeah.
And then, 20 years ago, there was an economy that kind of grew out of that, which is the experience economy. It's digital. Well, there's now 3 emerging economies that are going to entirely redefine the profession, right? And so first is the creator economy, which already is redefining the profession. And when you're in, Cannes at the International Festival of Creativity or elsewhere, you can't help but see this already happening in a significant way, right? This is influencer, this is social, and this is where that's all coming together. Where creators are now more credible and trusted than
Yeah.
brands, and they define culture, right? And then second is the stakeholder economy, and so this is the idea that CEOs, C-suites, boards are under greater pressure than ever before, particularly at the intersection of business and culture, and politics and social issues, right? There's all of this increased tension, and there's higher stakes. So that's another economy that's going to be continue to redefine the profession in the next 5 years. And then last but not least, of course, which is the AI revolution, right? This is the intelligence economy. And the intelligence economy is what ultimately is the force multiplier for all of the others, right? It's like supercharging the change. And I do think that, you will see more change in the next, and I say it without hyperbole, but you'll see more change in our profession in the next 5 years than we did in the previous 50.
Well, we'll bring you back in a year and we'll get an update on that.
Yeah,
But I'm glad you mentioned AI because I want to end on one AI thing like I love to on stage. You have a cool AI tool that you use. Please share it.
Okay, well, it's a bit more of a system than a tool. So, as I was telling Nick, we use AI we build AI into the work we do for our clients every day. We've been doing this for years, right? We've been doing AI workshops for, C-suites, and we build agentic crisis systems for some of our clients, and we do scenario planning and all agentic monitoring, all the kind of things that you would expect. And I found in my conversations with CEOs that they were actually much more interested in talking to me about like my personal AI use than like the enterprise AI solutions.
That's what I'm interested in.
Right, so you're interested in. And so, and I was talking to, and a lot of them were telling me what their personal AI use was. And so then it dawned on me that if I really wanted to be advising CEOs on their personal AI use, I needed to do my own kind of AI transformation. And so this is essentially what I did. And Nick makes fun of me, or will make fun of me for this.
Keeping a straight face, I love that.
But I worked with the team to catalog every single thing that I do from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed, down to the atomic unit, right? And so then this whole, as you can imagine, this is like a massive, comprehensive, data set. And then we organized it, we cataloged it, and we were like, what on this list can be automated, orchestrated, replaced with tech off the shelf, or replaced with custom tech or agents, right? And so then we spent the next 6 months building the system that would allow a good amount of that activity to be replaced by all the things that I just told you about. And so I have an entire suite of off-the-shelf tech that I use that I layer, right? Like, as you guys probably have experienced yourself, like when you use these things as a series of one-offs, they're borderline, I'm not going to say useless, but you don't get as much out of them. But when you layer them together, so like, let me give you an example of what that means. I have like my own equivalent of like my own personal miniature LLM, right? It's a workspace.
A robot gym.
It's a workspace, but the way that it is fed is via a series of things. My email is connected into it. Every single conversation I have all day, every day, for the most part, except for the private ones, the notes from those conversations automatically feed directly into the LLM, right? The LLM is queryable, so you can ask it to do something for you or tell you based on everything that's being fed into it. It also is predictive, based on the more and more you feed into it, the more it's predictive. And then what I also have on top of it is a set of custom tech and agents to do tasks, right? And so like, again, back to that big list of things that I do all day, every day. Well, it was like, okay, so I have an agent that helps me write faster. I have an agent that provides me with real-time competitive intelligence up to date all the time. And then I have agents for pretty much everything that you can think of within reason that can be automated. But more importantly, they all like sync to each other, and they're all part of one like almost like brain central repository. And
does it work?
Yeah, it works great.
All right.
And now I'm having my team, essentially everybody on my team is now going through the same process, and then we're going to push it down throughout the entire organization so that the whole company essentially has this.
Well, Jim, great to see you. We'll invite you back next year. See if you come, maybe your robot.
Right, I'll send
instead, and you can
I'll vibe code
you can't come on stage
version
yet,
of myself.
hopefully. All right, this human space is still safe.
Yeah.
Jim, thanks for being here. Huge thanks to Weber Shandwick. The Eleanor Hawkins Show will continue.
Yeah, very good.